Hello, thank you so much for purchasing my DIY kit for bookshelf accessories. Hopefully you bought the whole bundle and you're having lots of fun putting together the bookshelf and everything else. But if you just got this, totally fine. I'm going to show you the DIY elements of this kit. But if you got it, you also got the little miniature plant, which is super cute. And you got one of the wild card items, like the terrarium, which is a rare one. I'm trying to be my own little mini brands here, except without the brands. Mini handmaids. The terrarium, maybe the award, the scent diffuser, sculpture, and whatever else I think of. But I'm going to show you how to do the DIY sections, elements of this kit. First off, we've got the bookends. These are just two little pieces of wood, but just to show you kind of how they would work is just give you the visual if you're working in miniatures. These are your little bookends. Very cute. Very cute, but these are plain. Now you might want to keep them plain wood, but I will show you two ways to judge these up if you want. It's pretty self-explanatory. One, you could just paint them, okay? But I have two things that might be able to give it just a little bit of an elevated look. You can take a wood stain marker. You could also use sort of a watered down brown paint of some kind of your choice. But this is a very fast way to give it a wood look. So if you're going to use this, use a very light color. I'll show you what I mean. Like golden oak, for instance. Because it's just such a small piece of wood and it's going to suck up this stain really quickly. So you're just going to just dab it really lightly, especially on the end of the wood. See how much darker that is? You may not like that look. See how much lighter it is on the grain side, or whatever the term is for it. So you may not like the look of that. Or you might think it looks cool. Like, see how it's darker on that side? That's one way to do it. But I do like the sheen that has. So this is the stain option. After it's sunk in a little, it's not as dark, and I'm really liking the way this looks. So a little stain marker, but you could get this same look with some brown paint, watered down, and then wipe it really good with a paper towel. You're going to get a very similar look. But I just really like the sheen of the stain. It looks really good. And this is going to take a bit to dry. So, don't set it on anything that might, you don't want to get any of the stain on. So I really like that option. Another option is a little trick I like to do. Instead of just straight up painting something in miniature, I will use nail polish to give it a more lacquered, shiny look. On wood, it's not as an amazing of an effect as it is on, say, like a piece of plastic or metal, but this will kind of give it a cool look. So let's do another one in nail polish. And then I'm going to also use just a piece of tape to push down the bottom. All right, because I'm not going to paint the bottom, just to make this process easier for myself and not have to like let things dry and then do another side. So I'm just going to stick that there. See, like that? Okay. That way I can get all the sides without having to touch it. Because with nail polish, you don't want it to touch everything because it's going to get goopy. Let me see if I can get a better angle. I'm going to show you. Make sure you shake up. This is just black nail polish. But you could use any color you want to give it like a shiny lacquer look. Now on wood, it's going to absorb this. So you might want to do like a base coat first. I'm just going to go straight on. I'm going to raw dog it. And you want to get pretty goopy, but not too goopy. That in-between zone is what we want. And because I've got it on that tape, I can move it around and get every angle. Just make sure it's really stuck on there good, or it'll go flying, and then it'll, you know how nail polish is if you've ever done it before. It's also kind of stinky, so if you don't like that smell, you'll see it's like absorbing it. So you're probably going to want to do 2 coats. That's all right. You want a pretty good amount, and if it like pools at the bottom, that's okay. I'll show you what to do. A little bit more on the brush. You want a thick coat, okay? Because you want that smooth surface to get created. Now we're going to do a second coat, so don't stress. And you're just going to let that dry for a bit. So this is the nail polish option after 2 coats. I think this actually might just be 1 coat. I got sidetracked, so I'm just filming this later. But you can see it kind of gives it like a enameled look, or like like it's stone or something. And if you, when you paint it on your little surface, there might be some nail polish that like pools around the bottom. And if that's the case and you tear it off and there's some like sticking out, you can just use a little bit of sandpaper or nail file, or even use scissors to cut off the edges. The bottom won't really show, so there you have it. That's one option. So I'm going to show you what you can do with this, which is some air dry clay. And I'm going to show you 2 things you can do with this. Don't take this out of the bag until you're ready to do the project, because it's air dry clay and it will get hard after a while in the air. Okay, so for this, I have 2 things I'll show you, but you can make whatever you want. I'm going to show you how to make a little coral, piece of coral, kind of sculpture-y looking thing for your shelf. Or we can make an adorable little ceramic looking piggy bank, or just a piggy sculpture. And I'll just show you how to do these. These are very simple to make, but you can also of course make whatever you want. One thing I recommend you have for this is something like this. Now this is from a clay tool kit, but you want something with a pokey end. You could use a toothpick, you could use a long pin, sewing pin, or you can use a tool like from a clay carving kit if you have one on hand, but something with a little sharp end that's a little bit on the longer side, and I'll show you why. Okay, so if you're going to do the coral, here's how you do it. I'm going to get the clay out. I'm going to divide it. And what you're going to do first is roll it into a ball, and then roll this out. You've played with clay before, you know the deal. You roll it out into a log, and then you're going to divide this. You can use an X-Acto knife, a kitchen knife, whatever you want, into, I would say, 4 sections. They don't have to be perfectly even. And now you're going to roll each of these into a ball. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, now you've got your 4 balls, and you're going to roll each of these into a log again. You're going to get these a little longer, almost an inch, I would say. They don't have to be exactly the same. In fact, they should be a little bit varied. Okay, that one might be a little too long, but that's okay. All right, now what I'm going to do is come through and cut all of these in half. and then start rolling these out to be just a little bit longer, of varying lengths. All right, so now to give these the texture that I want, I'm going to take something like a pin or one of these doodads. I'm going to use a pen because I want my holes to be a little bit smaller. You could also, if you do have like a clay carving kit, you know, this little guy, you could use this to create the texture we want of that coral, which is like sort of dotted and rugged. So I'll show you up close. I'm just going to hold it against my, it's easier to do against a surface, but I'll show you. You're just going to poke, and it's creating a texture. Okay. And this clay is pretty fun to work with because it holds that texture. It doesn't like break apart. But you're going to get as much of it as you can as you're holding it. See, I find it easier. Let's see if I can zoom in here. I find it easier to do this. And you're just going to get as much of it as you can. It's a tiny piece and you don't want to obliterate it, but just try to get the edges a little bit too. So it's got that great 3D all the way around look. See, you're just sort of poking it. Don't go all the way through. Definitely don't poke yourself. And you're going to do that with all of these pieces. All right. Okay, so now that you've got these done, what you're going to do is kind of create a bouquet. All right, you're going to put them all together in between your two fingers and create a little bouquet of them. All right, and start, if you need to press it together to get it to stay, that's fine. This kind of looks random. That's good. We want it to look almost like branches of a plant, because I guess coral originally is a plant. Look, don't quote me. I'm not a scientist. All right. It's kind of falling apart. If you need to get your finger a little bit wet, that can help with the dry clay. Just don't go too crazy. Now, you want to think about your shelf and the size. If it feels too big, you could remove one or two. But there's an extra step here that's kind of cool to make it look even more small and detailed, is you take a little pair of scissors and you can actually cut more branches that are sort of branching off with the clay. Just be careful not to cut off an entire piece, but if it does, that's fine. It could break off and just be, that's the shape of it. Very carefully. I'm just creating little forks in the road, or trimming it accidentally, which is fine. So see, now you'll have something kind of like this, and you can go as detailed as you want. I might try to do one more little snip on this thicker piece just to give it some more smaller branches. See, gotta be careful because it starts coming apart. So now you can sort of shape this how you want. You can look up pictures. This is what I did. I looked up pictures of coral. Now you're gonna have this big old knob at the end, the sort of handle of it all. We're gonna trim that, but just get this to be the kind of shape you want. You can set it down and look and see, like, how's it gonna sit? How's it gonna look? What do you like? Get it looking like it's, you know, frozen in time in the water. Whoa, but don't break it apart like I just did. If you do, just gently pull that apart and squeeze it back together. Okay. And then I'm just gonna lay that down, and I'm gonna take an X-Acto knife, but you can also use just a regular knife, and trim this without trying to smush this part. You could also use scissors and then sort of reshape that. Okay, so now the only other thing you need to do is just add in some more, very carefully so it doesn't fall apart, just some more dots, more texture where it might have gotten smoothed from your handling of it, but just mainly on this bottom part. But don't overdo it because it'll start to kind of slump and crumble and not be the shape you want. So just very lightly. And you can even take your pins or your tool and reshape it how you want. And then you're just going to leave that be and let it dry for 24 hours. Don't get tempted, all right? It does take a while for this to dry, so just set it and forget it, all right? Don't mess with it like I am. So for the pig, it's a little bit more challenging to make the pig, surprisingly enough. This little guy, okay? And because you're just working with these teeny tiny pieces and you got to work pretty quickly because the clay will start to dry out. So what you do is you pinch off most of it, or about, I don't know, a little over half of what you've got. Create a ball, smooth ball. I would say about the size of a blueberry, and just make it as smooth as you can. And then just give it a little bit of a oblong shape. Set that aside. And I'm going to start with the tail, because the tail is really hard to make if the clay has dried at all. So I'm just going to roll out a little sliver like that. And then with my fingers, curl it into a little curly shape. Okay, something like that. I wouldn't recommend like twisting it around anything because it'll just kind of fall apart. So I'm just very gently, I just kind of let it fall down. To attach it, I'm going to dab my finger with a little bit of water. And then I'm going to pick it up ever so slightly, not applying any pressure. And I'm just going to, with my fingernail, like kind of give it a little push and shape it how I want. And then if you have one of these little like silicone brush things that you get in like resin kits or tools, clay tools, you can blend this in so it really adheres. Otherwise, just give it some pressure with your fingernail and try to really make it adhere to the body. All right, and I'm gonna make this a little bit more flush, and you can shape it how you want. Okay, all right, so there's my tail. And then I'm going to take, just make some little balls. You're going to need 7 total. So you're going to do 4 for the legs. Make it, you know, 2, make sure your 2 front legs and 2 back legs are about the same size each, or all 4 can be the same, whatever. Then 2 little balls for your ears. Okay. And then 1 kind of bigger one, say the size of maybe a lentil, for your nose, snout. All right. So I'm going to do the feet first, the legs first. So I pick like where I want the bottom to be. So I'm going to just rub it with a little bit of water. And for this, I'm just going to place it down so that I can use gravity to help me place each leg without it like flying somewhere. And then I can try to just give it a little more, just push it in a little more. All right, so just push these little 4 legs in. All right. All right. So there we go. Now, I'm going to do the snout. Roll it in a ball. And I'm not going to try to shape it into anything. I'm literally just going to attach it. Now again, I might need to get just the slightest bit of moisture right there. And then mush it, because that'll give it the shape that you want by just mushing it. And then, sorry, mush it. And then squeeze it. And then, very carefully, you're just going to take a pin and give it 2 little nostrils. Don't overdo it because it'll pull off the snout. Okay. All right, be careful when you're handling this because all the pieces might come falling off. All right, so now the ears are your final piece. Roll these into balls, and then again, we're going to attach. This is probably the trickiest part because if you push too hard, it kind of messes up the rest. I just get a little bit of moisture on my fingers. Take the ear, and I'm not shaping it into anything right now. I'm just gonna try and get it to adhere. All right, now if I can, I'm going to just mush it down so that it sticks better. I'm gonna take this whole thing and I'm gonna stick it onto like a toothpick or something ever so slightly, just right there. So now I can hold it without bumping all these other little pieces. So I've got my ears there, and very carefully, I'm just gonna squeeze them into like little Hershey Kiss shapes. Just with the tip of my finger. It will be hard to do this without breaking it off, but if you blended it in a little first, it'll stay. So just give it some personality. I love that. All right, now I'm gonna give it some eyes. Okay. And I'm just gonna go straight in very gently because I don't wanna, see? And there's your pig. Now, if you see anything, like there's a little bump there, I'm gonna smooth that out, but just don't mess with it too much. You're gonna regret it, promise you. All right. I'm not a professional clay person, but this will do it the trick, just for a cute little detail. And I'll show you what to do when it's dry. But you're gonna let this dry for 24 hours. You're gonna stick whatever you stuck this on, you're gonna stick this in a cup or something so that it's suspended in the air. You're not gonna lay it down. You're gonna sit it up in something and let it dry for 24 hours. And then it'll come right off there, okay? Don't mess with it. So at the end, you could paint it a color, you could put nail polish on it, you can do markers on this kind of clay. Regardless, if you want to give it more of a sheen, you could put clear nail polish or some Mod Podge on it to give it more of a shine, like it's ceramic. And there you have it. 2 little ideas to do with your clay that you get, plus your bookends.